Welcome to this edition of the Teed Up podcast, talking all things NBA. Tonight we're streaming live on YouTube. Currently don't have any viewers. I'm not expecting any. This podcast is still pretty new, but if you do want to come on and join the podcast, we do stream live every weeknight on YouTube. You can find us on the YouTube page or follow us on Twitter at teed up underscore at teed_up_podcast on Twitter. And you can find us by searching us on YouTube. We go live 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's every night on YouTube on Thursday nights. So come join the conversation, get involved. The real idea behind this show is to get some fan interaction, kind of back and forth with you guys, the fans. So come hang out. Let's talk NBA. I tried to do it before the games tip off Thursday evening. It gives me a chance to go through the previous week's games, what I liked, what I didn't like, and then kind of look ahead at the weekend's games with the lineup. So hard to keep track of all the games going on right now. So we want to get the fans involved in talking about it. So just wanted to give that a bit of a rundown before we start the show tonight, as this is a new podcast, and just kind of want to explain why I go on YouTube live as well as doing the podcast. So again, not expecting any viewers this evening, but hopefully people start joining in and we'll make it a regular thing on Thursdays, just having a chance to talk hoops with some regular dudes. So here we go, rolling into the podcast for the evening. I was going to have a guest on tonight. Unfortunately, some circumstances kept us from getting together. Hoping to have him on soon. It's a good friend of mine who I've talked NBA with for years. Just another regular dude like me. We played basketball together all growing up, and we've had some great conversations over the years over the phone that I was hoping to get on podcast because he's got some great views, got great takes, more of a gambler than I am. So he's got some takes on the lines, things like that. So hoping to get him on possibly next week. We'll see. So stay tuned. And another thing real quick before we get into the show, if you're interested in coming on the show and want to talk hoops with me for 30 minutes to an hour, anyone's welcome onto the show. You don't have to be a big name. I'm nobody. So come on. I'm willing to talk hoops with anybody. So come on, let's chat. Doesn't matter who your favorite team is. I'd love to, this is a podcast just about talking basketball. I just wanted to do it because my wife does not care about the NBA at all. I'm sick of hearing me talk about it. So I'm talking to you guys. So we'll get right into it here. I want to talk about the Eastern Conference a little bit. I tend to follow the Eastern Conference a little bit more because I'm up for the games, to be honest. The West Coast games tend to be on a little too late for me. I end up having to catch it in the morning on the replay. But I'm really interested in this top tier of the Eastern Conference. And this week was a little bit especially interesting to me with the Cavaliers dropping a game to Brooklyn. And the game before that, the Bulls took them into the final couple minutes of that game. So I think going into the year, a lot of people that were naysayers about the NBA were saying, the finals are predetermined. It's the Warriors versus the Cavs. And that could be true at the end of the year. They still do look like probably the two best teams, but I don't know that it's as written in stone as some people may like to say. I mean, definitely I think the Warriors are the best team in basketball, and they should have a fairly good chance, obviously, making it to the finals. But the Cavs, man, I don't know at what point. I know it's really early in the season here, but they're showing some signs that maybe this team isn't really what people think. And I think that there's a good chance that the Cavs actually got worse from a year ago, even though people, they've added parts and pieces and depth. You have Green, Crowder. People like those moves. Added D Rose. That was another one. When I didn't understand the D Rose move, I never liked it. I don't think that it makes them a better team, but a lot of the national analysts, as soon as they did that, they're like, getting together, they're going to chase another ring. They have a shot at another ring. I think it made the team worse. And it's kind of showing here early on. Obviously, they have some injuries. Isaiah Thomas isn't back yet. We don't know when he'll be back, and I've been saying this since the injury first happened last year, that when he comes back, what's he going to be like? Hip injury is tough, especially for a player like that and the style that he plays. Not sure that he's going to be the same guy, especially not right away. Might take some time for him to become the Isaiah Thomas that people expected. I am not big on Isaiah Thomas. I'm not sure that he will ever be able to replicate the season that he had a year ago. With that said, I think either way, with or without Isaiah Thomas, I think this team has some issues. One thing I did like in the game against the Bulls in the third quarter, they came out. The Bulls had a pretty good lead, but in the third quarter, they came out and actually started moving the ball, which is something I hadn't seen a lot of from the Cavaliers prior to that point this season. So I think they're a decent team when they get the ball moving. I just don't see them consistently doing it on offense. They get stuck. Guys just start taking bad shots. The ball sticks in Dwayne Wade's hands a ton, but if they can keep the ball movement up and move without the basketball, I think they can be a dangerous team. I mean, they have one of the most dangerous playmakers, obviously, in the game, in LeBron James, and he's best when he's able to create with assists. And he did it really well against the Bulls. Obviously, the Bulls are a terrible defensive team, so that's not saying a whole lot. But he racked up his assists, and I think he's best when he's able to do that. And I think he's most comfortable when he's able to do that. I don't think he wants to dominate the scoreboard if he can help it. I think he'd rather be a distributor, especially at this point in his career, for the length of the season too. So we'll see. I think the Cavs are definitely a team to keep an eye on. I'm pretty sure they're obviously still the favorite to win the East and go to the finals, but I don't think it's going to be as easy of a road as people thought it may be at the beginning of the season. Kind of with that said, the Celtics are another team that, well, if anyone was going to challenge the Cavaliers, it was going to be the Celtics, right? They added Hayward in the offseason, Irving, and they drafted Tatum. Jaylen Brown's supposed to take this next big step. That was the thing that I was really looking forward to talking to this evening, because the guy, George, that I was going to have on is a huge Celtics fan and basically knows everything there is to know about the C's. I'm not quite sold on him, to be honest. I was talking to him last night in a chat, and I just said, hey, man, like, these guys got to show me something. And they definitely did. I mean, they beat up on the Knicks pretty good, but you got to beat up on the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks are really bad. That was one of the worst games I've seen already this season, was how the Knicks were playing on both sides of the ball. So I need to see it tonight. The Celtics are going up against the Bucks. I think that's going to be a great matchup. Right now, I've got the Bucks ahead of the Celtics. I think the Celtics might be behind the Raptors, Wizards, and the Bucks in the Eastern Conference, which is Gordon Hayward's injury would create a huge slide if that's true, if they're behind those teams. I think most people just expect them kind of to stay the number 2-3 team in the East, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see what we got out of the Raptors tonight. I'm not really sure on them yet. They're going up against the Warriors, so that'll be a good battle. I think that's tonight. And tonight we got the C's Bucks, 8 p.m. So I'm going to try to get done with this conversation so everybody, most really me, because nobody's watching this, will be able to go watch that game. So this top tier in the East, I think, is really going to shake out. I think the team I'm most excited about is the Bucks right now. Giannis is just playing out of his mind. At the beginning of the season, when I did my preview, I had James Harden as the favorite for the MVP, and I still think that that's a decent. I think James Harden's playing really well. I think the Rockets are playing great basketball, and they're going to be one of those teams. I think that could be one of the few teams that compete with the Warriors in the West, and they might be able to take first place this year. I'm just going out on a limb. If the Warriors struggle at all, Rockets will be right there to take that from them. But I think obviously the Warriors are the best team in basketball. But back to my point here is Giannis is playing out of his mind. And if he can maintain, I don't think he can maintain the level that he's playing at, but if he can maintain even 80% of how he started the season, he's going to be the MVP of the league. And if he's the MVP of the league, I think that this team is a top 3 team in the East. I just don't see how they couldn't be. The only way I could see it is injuries. They've had bad luck the past 2 seasons. Some big injuries to the starting lineup for a long period of time. But this team just looks good. We're going to have a big test tonight again against the Celtics. They've already played the Celtics. So we're going to see it again. But the length that this team has is really impressive. And when it comes down to playoff basketball, I talk about this all the time, like regular season, you pretty much know until you get to those bottom few spots, you pretty much know who the playoff teams are going into the year, barring major injuries or anything like that. I think the Bucks have always been a playoff team. I think they're going to be no matter what. Even with some injuries, I think they'll be a playoff team. How is your team built for once you get into the playoffs? And this was kind of my concern for the Boston Celtics all season is, they definitely got more top heavy in adding Hayward now who's hurt and adding Kyrie Irving, and Tatum is going to be kind of hit or miss depending on the night and whatever, if Brown gets better, yada, yada. Really, though, what do they have at depth? And that's a big one for postseason play. And also another thing that I feel like you need is length and defense. And I don't really know what you're going to get. I think Jaylen Brown's a pretty good defender for the season. I'm not sure on Tatum, but he's got nice size and athleticism. But when you look at the Bucks, a couple of years ago, they played the Bulls in the playoffs, and they were still a super young team. But I was looking at them, and the way the game slows down in the playoffs, their length is so difficult to contend against. It doesn't really matter if you try to create mismatches on offense or try to get them in switches, because their length and athleticism really is, most of those guys can play any position. So you're not going to catch them in too many bad situations or bad mismatches. Giannis can play every position on the court, so you're not ever going to catch him in a bad matchup. I just see them as such a difficult task once they get in the playoffs, that it doesn't matter what seed they end up in or what seed other teams are. I would not want to match up against them. I think possibly they're the most dangerous team in basketball right now, and they're going to be exciting to watch. So I'm super excited to look forward to this game tonight. C's Bucks. They're rolling out the replica Mecca court for the 50th season of the Bucks, which is a pretty cool thing. They're going to do it at the old arena. I think stuff like that is super cool. I hope that maybe more teams do that, roll out some of the old school floors. I love the old school uniforms. I like the showing some tradition. I think that's all great for the game. I think it's great for these younger fans that just don't know anything about the tradition of their teams. The NBA has got a long, beautiful tradition that they should be super proud of. And so I think this is a great opportunity for the league to kind of showcase a little bit of that tonight for the Bucks. So a big stage on TNT. Let's see what they got. I'm going with the Bucks winning. I think it's like a 4-point. I think Bucks are -4 or something like that, which I'm totally fine with that. So I like that right there. A couple of other things I want to talk about before we get going here into the rest of the weekend's games and the games that I like. Trying to see here. Suns. Geez, how did I let that slip? The Suns are 2-0 since firing their head coach, and then Eric Bledsoe not being with the team. So kind of an interesting storyline there. Something to keep an eye on. I still don't think the Suns are a good basketball team at all, but I would love to see what the record is when teams fire their head coach, what that record going forward maybe for the next 5 games are, because it seems like anytime they fire a head coach, the team comes out and wins the next game. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just seems that way. So that was interesting. And then they make it back-to-back victories. Not really sure what's going to happen with Eric Bledsoe. I mean, his trade value just seems to be dwindling. Which is a shame, because I think he's actually a good player. And I think on a team like, say, the Bucks, who I've been talking about a lot, I mean, if the Bucks could land an Eric Bledsoe, or maybe even, I don't know that the Celtics really have anything that they'd be willing to give up for him, but he might fit nice there and kind of helping to replace the Hayward being hurt. But if he was able to land on a contender, I think he could be kind of the difference for one of these teams. I don't think he's a superstar player, but I think he's a really good mid-level, that next tier to superstars. And I think on the right team, he could provide a whole lot of assistance. So I think that's just a spoiled relationship, and the Suns aren't doing themselves any favors as far as getting any trade value out of him. At this point, they might just be able to part with him for, a second rounder or something like that. But he's definitely not going to be playing for the Suns going forward. It's going to be something to keep an eye on as to where he ends up, because that could really turn the tide, say, the East. If he ends up on a team like the Bucks, they could become, right up there with the Cavs, possibly even. So definitely something to keep an eye on, but good for the Suns going 2-0 after firing their head coach. I want the Suns to be good. I feel like I talk about the Kings are one of those teams all the time. I feel like we're robbed of a championship, and I feel like the Suns are also up there in that conversation of, man, that Nash and Amari Stoudemire team had so much potential, and they're just another one of those fan bases that I feel for and I want to see succeed. So I hope the Suns turn that ship around here in the next couple of years. But in the meantime, good for you guys. Again, your second win in a row there. Another big game that happened last night. I didn't get to see the game. I saw a little bit of the replay this morning on NBA TV. Lakers over the Wizards. There was a lot talk going on Twitter about this game because Lonzo and John Wall, apparently there was some smack talk going on a couple days before the game. John Wall took exception to it. Gortat got involved and, said he was going to make him work. John Wall actually had a really good game and only scored 18 points. But he had a number of assists, number of rebounds. Lonzo actually had a pretty good game too. Not a lot of points, but he definitely got the assists up. I think he had 10 assists. So, but the Lakers winning over the Wizards, and I'm not really sure. I keep wanting to think that the Wizards are a really good team and that they might be able to overtake that place where the Celtics were as the number 2 team, but they have no bench. When John Wall's not on the court, they just can't do very much. So I do like the Wizards. I think that they're going to be fine. But the Lakers taking that win. So again, Lakers are, in my mind, I have them as a low playoff team. I think I had them as the 8th seed in the West. So something to keep an eye on. Didn't start out great, but kind of moving along now, getting going. So good for them winning over the Wizards. I think that was a big victory for them and a big victory for Lonzo. I mean, again, even though he didn't have the best night ever, he didn't get shut down. He was able to hang with one of the top point guards in the game. So good for him. Don't buy the big baller shoes. That's all I got to say. All right, now we're going into this weekend's lineup for games. Honestly, it wasn't the best lineup when I was looking through, but I'm going to point out the games that I'm most interested in watching, and hopefully you'll watch too, and then we can talk about them next week, and then we'll wrap up this episode and get out of the way so I can go watch tip-off of the games and watch some football tonight and take over the whole television in my house. My wife's going to be super excited about that. So tonight, like I said, we got C's versus Bucks, TNT 8 p.m. And then after that on NBA TV, I believe, we have the Clippers versus Blazers, which is actually going to be a pretty interesting matchup, I think. I'm not really big on either team, but they're actually both playing very well right now. McCollum for the Blazers is playing lights out. He's shooting at an incredible rate. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. I think maybe the Clippers are a little bit better without Chris Paul. I think they're playing better team basketball right now, so we'll see. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. I probably won't stay up for it, but I'm definitely going to take a look first thing in the morning and see how that game shook out. Friday night, 8 o'clock, we got Thunder versus the T-Wolves, which I am very excited about this game. I don't love the Thunder team just because I'm not a big Carmelo Anthony or Russell Westbrook fan, but early indications are that it is working. Having them PG-13 all together. Russ is still getting his triple doubles with those guys. So all indications early are that is working totally fine, just going off as planned. This is going to be another good game. T-Wolves kind of just trying to find themselves right now. I still think it's a long season. I think they're going to be a good team. I'm not super worried about them. They've underperformed in a few games. That's kind of typical of a Tom Thibodeau team early in the season. So, again, like I said, I'm not super worried. Hoping Jimmy Butler comes back. He didn't play the last game. I don't remember why, but definitely a game that I'm going to be keeping an eye on Friday night. Really excited about that one. And then we have 10:30. We have the Wizards Warriors. So that's Wizards at Warriors. That's going to be another really fun one. John Wall, Steph Curry. I think the Warriors are going to just really do whatever they want against the Wizards. Like I said, once the Wizards pull that starting 5 off the floor, they really have no real offense. They can't seem to get anything going, and the Warriors are deep. So this should be a Warriors win, but I think it'll be an entertaining game for a Friday night. You got 2 of the best point guards in the league going at it, so that's always a fun battle. Saturday night, I had 2 games of interest. Boston versus Miami. Again, I think Boston's got 2 good matchups this weekend to really show where they're at. I didn't think the Knicks was a great matchup for them to kind of show where they are in this post-Hayward early part of the season. What team is this? Kind of defining who they are. I think Miami will be another good test for them. While the Knicks didn't do a whole lot against Boston, Kanter was actually able to really kind of do what he wanted. And if they maybe are playing up against a better big man like Whiteside, they might struggle. I'm not sure that Horford's a great defensive big. I don't think he can hang with some of the bigger guys in the league. And Baines isn't really going to give you much. So that's going to be an interesting matchup for me to see how they handle a team with a really good big man. They're going up against a possible playoff team. So two possible playoff teams in a row. See how they handle that. And that's a road game. So I'm going to get to know a little bit more about the Celtics as we head into next week's episode. And hopefully I'll have my friend on that's a big Celtics fan. We can kind of talk about who is this team and what they're going to be. The next game is Rockets versus Grizzlies, 8 p.m. And that's another one that was a really good game the other night. They went right to the final minute, I think, the Rockets Grizzlies. So I like the Grizz. I didn't think they were going to be that good this year, but that team is, I hate to say it, they are gritty and they're playing gritty. So as long as they keep playing like that, but the Rockets, man, I'm loving what Eric Gordon's providing off the bench. I used to be a big James Harden hater, but I actually really like his game now. He's developed nicely. He's a nice distributor of the basketball. The guy can score from anywhere. So that's a game that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. And then finally, Sunday, I didn't like any of the games, guys. I'm not going to lie. Let me take a look here what all the games were, but I didn't like Sunday's matchups. Let's see here. Sunday, you got Bucks Hawks, that's a crap game. Spurs Pacers, that's a crap game. Denver Nuggets Brooklyn Nets, that's a crap game. Orlando Magic Charlotte Hornets, junk. Wizards Kings, I guess that's probably the best game of the night, but still not a game that's going to get me off my TV or away from watching football. New York Knicks Cavaliers, meh. And then Pistons Warriors, that's not going to be a fun game. Maybe it's because the NBA doesn't want to compete with football on Sunday this time of year, but that lineup is trash, guys. I want to see a little bit better. I can watch two sports at once, so I love to have some better NBA action on Sunday than that. And for all those Bulls fans out there, actually, just breaking news coming across my phone here while we're doing the episode. I'm sorry if you heard. I forgot to shut my phone off, so you might have heard the notification. But it's saying Nikola Mirotic is willing to waive veto clause and accept a trade from the Bulls. So that's here kind of to end the show. That's some big news because the Bulls just signed Mirotic to an extension this summer. Clearly, they think that he was going to be the veteran presence, the kind of the one guy that's almost not really a superstar status, but that the Bulls, they believe should be a superstar player. They've invested a lot of in him and waiting for him to come over. And then once he came over, investing the time to develop him. So this is big because they were kind of counting on him as being a large part of this future rebuild and building around a player like Mirotic and Markkanen. But now Bobby Portis punches him in the face. I don't know that he loved the way the team responded to that and only suspending Portis and not taking any further action. There was rumors out there that Portis sent a text to him or whatever to reach out, and then Mirotic didn't respond at all. I've also heard that Mirotic hasn't even cleared concussion protocol yet, and it's been about a week since the punch. So this is something to keep an eye on for Bulls fans. That would be big news. I don't know what they get in return for Mirotic. He hasn't really panned out to the hype that he came over from overseas with. So that's some breaking news to end the episode here. I'm going to get going because I want to watch the games this evening, but spread this podcast, spread the news, comment on YouTube, comment on the podcast, give us some reviews. Let us know how to get better. This is my first podcast that I've rolled out by myself, so I'm open for criticisms. Let us know what you want to see. I am going to start rolling out a new segment once we have guests called Buying or Lying, which are you buying the hype or is this guy lying to us and we're not seeing it? Kind of just going over, MVP odds, stats, things like that, and asking our guests, hey, do you think this guy's the real deal or the stats legitimate, can hold up for the whole season or not? So if you have any ideas for segments, things like that, send them over to me. Again, hit me up on Twitter. It's TD_UP_podcast, T_up_podcast. That was the only one that was available. It's hard to say over a podcast, but that's our handle on Twitter. You can comment on the YouTube page. I'll read them. I'm here. You can get at me. It's teeduppodcast@gmail.com. So there's different ways to get at me. My personal Twitter handle is Aaron Quinn 716. So if you can't find the podcast, find me again, Aaron Quinn 716. I'm over there. I talk a lot of Bills and NFL news over there. So if you're interested in the NFL, come talk to me there. Try to tweet out a little bit of basketball, but not too much there. But definitely on our Twitter handle, and share this, get involved. come talk on the YouTube page with us. I would love to do a question answer segment at the end and get more fan interaction here. That's kind of what I'm looking to achieve. I want to give one shout out. If you're watching the YouTube feed, you won't hear it, but the introduction music on the podcast version is done by a good friend of mine, Cody Chapman. He goes by the name Chatmatic. You can find him on Bandcamp. I think it's bandcamp.com /Chatmatic, or maybe it's chatmatic.bandcamp.com. I think that's what it is, actually. He's got a ton of great beats. If you're into hip hop, if you're into beats, if you're an MC looking to make a record, get in touch with him. He's really got some good stuff. He's kind of got a little bit of a Jay Dilla, DJ Premier, Apollo Brown, kind of Ninth Wonder feel to him. So I know it's probably weird to hear me talking like that, but I'm a big hip hop fan, and Cody's let me use his music for the intro to this podcast. I'm going to change it up from time to time, but I want to give him a shout out and thanks for doing that. So enjoy the games this weekend, you guys. Hopefully there's a lot for us to talk about next week and some of the things start to shake out. Like I said, that Eastern Conference, see how that shakes out in the top spot. I think we're going to know a little bit more going into next week what that is going to look like. So enjoy the games. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week.